So Obsidian Bases, which is one of the, if not the most highly anticipated update to Obsidian ever, came out a couple of days back. But instead of inundating you with loads and loads of different use cases and features and things that it can do all in one video, I'm going to share with you the one thing that I've been using this feature for in my vault so far and walk you through why I like it and why I think that it's useful. Okay, so Obsidian Bases is the newest update to Obsidian. What it does is display notes in a certain list or table based upon note properties that are inside the note here. So you can see the YAML metadata of this note, and you can see that when I go to read-only mode, it changes to an Obsidian property. And so what Bases does is query notes using these properties and display them in a useful little list, or as we'll see in a minute, a gallery, so that you can access them all in one place, all at one time. And now there used to be a popular plugin, still is a very popular plugin, that did this as well, called Dataview, which you've probably heard of. But Obsidian Bases is something that's actually been developed by the Obsidian team, and so works as a core plugin in the app now. So we'll see here, Bases as a core plugin creates bases by querying note properties, and this is a brilliant substitute for Dataview, which is one of the most popular community plugins. So we'll look at the differences a little bit here now, before I get on to showing you this one feature in full. So this is a base, and it looks like that. And bases are actually their own kind of file, as opposed to just a chunk of code that's rendered in a certain way inside of a note. Kind of like a canvas is its own file, it's .canvas, a base is .base, but we'll get onto that. We'll see what I used to do before to create tables like this would be to call Dataview table where contains file.folder is I think that's right. And so that's what I used to do using Dataview to call up a list of notes. But one of the advantages of Bases is that you can filter notes in this interface here, and although this filter can't necessarily be represented, and I'll run through this specific filter and what I use it for a little bit later on in the video as well, although this can't be represented as kind of a drop down and selection, if I was to add a filter that's new, you can see I've got a lot of properties that I can just go through in a very simple, easy to access manner. So that's one of the advantages of Obsidian Bases, in that you don't have to know how to type out all of the stuff that I did for Dataview there. So now I'm going to go on to the actual one function that I've found for Obsidian Bases, and it's basically the same as the one function that I used for Dataview. And there's this feature in a third-party plugin that I've been using pretty much since back before the plugin had about 10,000 downloads in the community plugin store. So for a good 2 years now minimum, I've been using the plugin Folder Notes, which is here. And what this plugin does is it creates a note inside of a folder in your vault that is displayed by default when you click on that folder in the sidebar. So you can see here that I've got a project, build new Bases version of the Parazetal Vault, which is my system that I use inside of Obsidian here, and a little Obsidian template product that I sell as well. And if you're interested in that, you can actually watch a 30-minute video of me walking through this entire system and all the folders and all the workflows that I use. It's the top link in the description, but I'm not going to waffle on about that for now. You can watch it if you like and see exactly how I work inside of the app. But this here, where I store all of the projects, and I've got this new project related to adding bases to this template that I produce, and you can see here this folder note opens up when I click that, and that is how I have a nice index to the project and display everything that's going on. And it's perhaps a bad example for this, but you can see if I were to create another new note in the folder, give it a template and write some notes content, it would display in the base here, and I would be able to still access all of these notes from one central point that serves as like an index to the project. And so that is the one thing that I use bases for. It's not complicated, but it's a ridiculously powerful and functional application of the core plugin, and it's, I mean, I don't want to complicate myself more than anything. I mean, there's a lot of things that bases can do. You can, for example, display all kinds of things. You can display tags and then add more tags to the note, for example. So you can see, as I've done there, I've added books tag for whatever reason. But at the moment, I don't need this feature, but bases are extremely powerful in all dimensions in ways that Dataview was not. And so I'm going to go into a little bit more of the mechanics behind how this actually works, because you can see I don't write a code snippet in the same way that I did for the Dataview demonstration I gave. Instead, I'm embedding the base file inside of this note. And so if I take you to my bases folder, you can see that I've actually got another folder note, again displaying the contents of my bases folder, which is here at the end of my file structure. And you can see I've got a number of different bases that I use. The normal one is general map of content, which is the one that's found here and in other projects. But for a couple of certain circumstances, I've got different bases, which I might run through as well. But they all serve the same function of being sat in that folder note at the top of a folder to give me an outline and an overview of everything that's contained within the folder. So I'll show you this map of content.base, and you can see here it opens up the actual base itself. So this is the base file with the extension .base as opposed to anything else. And you can see here all I've done is query. If I go to filter, I'll show you what I've done. In all views, I query just that the base display the files that are inside the folder that the base is located in. That's important, I'll get back to that bit. And I also suggest that the base does not show the file name that is the same as the notes that the base is in. And that's also important simply because you don't want your, if I go back to here and show you, you don't want your actual folder name, folder note showing up in your base list of notes in the folder, because that's the note you're already on. It would be redundant. But one good thing about bases is that you can set that filter to be true in all views. So no matter where I embed this map of content base now, it does the function of showing a list of all the notes inside the folder the base is embedded into, as opposed to inside of just specifically one folder that I've specified. And so that means that I can create a map of content template that contains this map of content base. And so whenever I create a new folder note in a new project, I can put this map of content template straight into that note, and it means that I've got a ready to go list and space to track project or area progress without having to do anything other than enter a template into a new note. And so that is a very much kind of refined and efficient way that I've found to add this functional database and list of notes inside of a folder to a folder note without much hassle, aside from creating this first map of content base. And now there are some edge cases to this. So inside the areas folder in my note, in my vault, is a Zettelkasten, which is kind of flat folder structure of loads of atomic notes that focus on one idea per note, so it would be slightly less functional. If I demonstrate, perhaps you can see what the base actually looks like. So you can see it's similar to the map of content base, but I've actually added a separate column to show where the file links to, so I can quickly see the links between knowledge without actually having to navigate into a note. But this is simply very similar. Well, I've done it in the filters in a different way, but the folder contains areas, so that just specifies this folder that is 2 areas in my navigation, and file name does not contain 2 areas. So it's very, very similar to the map of content base, except, or at least in filters, except in properties we're also displaying file links, which is anything inside of these notes that is linked to another note in the Zettelkasten or anywhere else in the vault. So if I select this note, you need to be credibility maxing. You can see that lean into being a personal brand note, if I go back, is already stated in this kind of file overview as being a file link. So that's an edge case of where I use bases, and you can see that I've got my own specific base to embed there. One more is in Readwise. So you can see here that because the stuff that's imported with Readwise has a couple of kind of unique properties, as in it shows the author and it specifies that something is an article or something's a book, and this means that I need a separate base that isn't the map of content base, because map of content doesn't have a column for author. It means I've got a separate base which is readwise.base, excuse me, that I can then embed into my Readwise note if I bring that up here. And so I have a better overview of the Readwise folder, which has a specific configuration of information inside of it. And so that's another edge case, and you can see that for this one I've separated things by property, so you can see that I've got Twitter threads and tweets, I've got articles, I've got books, and now the books can be the books can have these little front covers on them as well, which is nice. It's sweet. I mean, it doesn't serve much of a purpose, but it's cool and it's well implemented, which is nice, because any other mechanism by which we could do this in the past using Dataview or something like that wasn't quite as well tied into the Obsidian ecosystem. But this is nice because you can just click your book cover and you are inside of the notes. Would be nice actually to display the author, so that's better. And also the title. How about file name? There we go. So now we've got all of the book information as well on the front of this gallery, which is another nice edge case use for bases. But you can see still the only thing that I'm using bases for is to be this index list inside of a folder note at different points in my vault. And you can see all of these underlined folders in the sidebar, they all have this. That's probably a bad example, I don't use periodic notes anymore, but inbox, they all have this base embedded into them that allows me to quickly navigate. It reduces the amount of time that I waste kind of looking through the sidebar for a certain note or searching in. All I have to do now is search for a certain project or topic, and that takes me straight to a note where I can browse, as opposed to having something in mind that I specifically need to search. But that's going slightly off topic into the benefit of folder notes and this function as well. I said that I'd show you this one thing that bases can do, and already the video's dragged on a little bit longer than I actually intended to do in the first place. So I'm going to leave that there, and if you want some more kind of insight into this mechanism, I've got another video about folder notes that admittedly uses a Dataview table up here instead of a base, but you can still watch that and learn a little bit about folder notes and just substitute a base in place of the Dataview table now that the feature's available. If you want to learn more about the actual system that I'm using to work in here, you can go to the top link in the description, which talks about, which is a video, a 30-minute video actually, of me walking you through this exact Obsidian Vault and all of the features of the system that I work in and all of the workflows that I do. So if you'd like to learn a little bit more about that, that's the top link in the description too. That is just about it from me. Like I said, ask questions if you want to know more about the feature, or you want me to feature something else or talk about something else, and I will see you in the next video, so take care.